His words we hear, as He who spoke, as none e'er spoke, but we believe Him near.
Welcome to Cathedral. I'm Father Greg Sakowitz. Special thanks again to Mark Teresi and David Jonas for the great work they do with the beautiful music and the playing. So David and Mark, thank you very, very much again. Special thanks again to Paula Colleen, who a couple weeks ago made a cameo appearance. So you all know what Paula Colleen looks like. And so Paula, great work with the whole video production, pulling the whole thing together. So Paula, thank you. Today we celebrate the 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time, and we're already moving toward the last third of the month of August. Folks, in a couple of weeks it's going to be Labor Day weekend, so please take the time to enjoy family before the fall is upon us, and many kids have already gone back to school. A Gush reporter told the famous golfer Phil Mickelson, he said, "You are spectacular. Your name is synonymous with the name and the game of golf. You really know your way around the course. What's your secret?" And Mickelson replied, "The holes are numbered." You know your way around the course. Yeah, the holes are numbered. I like that. Phil was quick. What's the secret of today's gospel? I have to tell you that certain passages in the Bible sometimes drive me crazy or confuse me, and this is one of them. This is one of those stories in which Jesus does not seem to be a really good guy. To recap, a woman comes to Jesus for help. He initially says, "No." Now wait a minute. Aren't we supposed to help other people in need at all times? So like most stories from the Bible, we can't simply look at the stories on the surface. There's always more to understand, more levels to probe, more layers to peel. And this is one of those stories. On the surface, Jesus seems to be indifferent to the woman's plight. So it gives. Our usual tendency is to focus excessively on what Jesus does or doesn't do, say or doesn't say. But sometimes the other characters are the ones who can illuminate the greatest truths and provide the clearest insights. And this is one such story. It's the woman who has much to teach us. Jesus, being fully aware that the disciples are watching and listening, allow the woman to be a channel of grace through faith. The whole story hinges on something Jesus says to the woman after her first request, "Will you help me?" He says, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Now Jesus was, in modern language, basically telling her, you know the rules, you're not one of us. You're a Canaanite, an outsider, so you're totally out of luck. We only take care of our own. This is probably the exact kind of response the disciples were expecting. This was the worldview at the time. Canaanites and Jews just did not mix. They just didn't mix. That's the way it had been for a long time, and that's the way it would remain. And the woman would have none of it. Jesus articulated what the barrier was and made it clear that he would not be helping her. But she would not accept this. She wouldn't accept it. For her, this artificial division was an injustice that society had imposed. She was desperate for help and was willing to do whatever it took to get that help, even if that meant going against the accepted norms, against the status quo. And so she asked for the Lord's help again. Jesus, of course, knew exactly what he was doing. He opened the door for the woman, and she walked right through. She saw the truth despite the darkness of the situation with persistent eyes of faith. The late St. Pope John Paul XXIII once said, "In essential matters, unity. In non-essential matters, diversity. In everything, charity." in everything charity. Listen to this story. Every day for years, he visited his wife in the nursing home. She suffered from Alzheimer's disease. With each day, she slipped further and further away in the way of the fog of dementia. Every day, he would feed her lunch. He would sit with her, show her pictures of the children, telling her the latest family news and stories she would forget as soon as she heard them. He would patiently remind her who he was and explain that they were married now for over 52 years. They had 2 daughters and 1 son and 4 beautiful grandchildren. He would hold her hand. Before leaving, he would always give her a kiss and tell her just how much he loved her, and she would never realize nor remember later that he had ever even been there. His heartbroken friends would ask him, "Why do you keep going every day, 7 days a week, and feed her lunch when she doesn't even know who you are?" He would always reply, "Because I know who I am. Because I know who I am." And the Canaanite woman in today's gospel knows who she is, despite the fact that she is despised by the Jewish community because of her race, ridiculed as a dog by the righteous, who mistakenly find some sense of superiority in her inferiority in their eyes. The Lord's compassion for her and the healing of her daughter breaks down the wall between Gentile and Jew. May our eyes and spirits be open to see every man, woman, and child as God sees them, as God's beloved children, the daughters and sons to each other, all made in the image of God, all embraced within the heart of God. How do we do this? How do I come to know who I am? Our beautiful stained glass windows here at Holy Name Cathedral, as marvelous as they are, as gorgeous as they are, look dark from the outside as we look inward. From the outside, the stained glass windows look uninviting and dull. However, from the inside, especially when the sun is shining, and I've seen it, our windows look bright, illuminate, very inviting. Here is the key question. 2 key questions. Do I allow the light of God to shine through me? Do I allow the light of God to shine through me? And what side of the stained glass windows and what side of life do I choose to stand on? What side of the stained glass windows and what side of life do I choose to stand on? The inside or the outside? It is a wonderful gift having life. So much rests with our own choices. Listen to this very powerful, true story. He was, as the Independent of London put it, the dying man who taught America how to live. Randy Pausch, 47, died some years ago, but not before his words, his wisdom, and his spirit made him an international phenomenon, first through the internet and then through the last lecture, his best-selling book of advice and inspiration. Pausch, the married father of 3, was an energetic and fun-loving computer science professor at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh when, in 2006, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. A year later, despite surgery and chemotherapy, physicians discovered the cancer had spread to his liver and spleen. He had been told he had no more than 6 months to live, yet he used that grim diagnosis as fuel to launch him on a journey of joy. On September 18th, 2007, Pausch engaged in a very venerable academic ritual known as the last lecture, during which scholars attempt to summarize a life's work. Among Pausch's thoughts, gleaned from both the original lecture and the book, are this: don't complain, just work harder. Always show gratitude. Apologize when you mess up and focus on other people, not yourself. Find the best in everybody. You may have to wait a long time, but people will show you their good sides eventually. Just keep waiting. It will come out. And the last is the best of all. And make time for what matters. And make time for what matters. On this particular one, Randy says this in his lecture. When Jay and I went on our honeymoon, we wanted to be left alone. Now, since my boss demanded a way for people to reach me, I recorded this greeting. Hi, this is Randy. I waited until I was 39 years old to get married. So my wife and I are going away for a month on our honeymoon. I hope you don't have a problem with that, but my boss does. Apparently, I have to be reachable. I then gave the names of Jay's parents and the city where they lived. If you call directory assistance, you can get their phone number. And then, if you can convince my in-laws that your emergency merits interrupting their only daughter's honeymoon, they have our number. We did not get one call. And he concluded, time is all we have. Time is all we have. We are loved to the core of our being. We are loved by God despite all of our weaknesses and failures. God pursues us, and we are not going to change God's mind about that, nor are we going to change God's heart. The only question left for us to answer is, will we accept God's mercy and forgiveness? Can we accept God's love, mercy, and forgiveness? And never, ever give up while we still have time. And one last thought from Lou Holtz. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. Attitude determines how well you do it. God bless all of you. Amen. Continued summer blessings.
And when our life of faith is done, in tender spirits lie.